So originally, these Pentecostals rightly believed that the gift of tongues was being able to speak in a known human language, just not known to the one speaking it. But when they actually tried to put that into practice, and they fell on their face, did a face plant, they came back, then and only then did they say, oh, wait a minute, we got that wrong. You see, the gift of tongues is not being able to speak in a known human language. It's actually being able to speak in unintelligible, ecstatic gibberish. That's what it is. And that has been the charismatic view of tongues ever since that day. Isn't that interesting? Now, to be fair, there was one woman, one student of Bethel College named Agnes Osmond. Now, no relation, of which I am aware anyway, to Jim Osmond. But Agnes Osmond claimed to get the real deal. The claim was that Agnes Osmond was able to speak in fluent Chinese and even lost the ability to speak in English and could only speak in Chinese. Not only could she speak in Chinese, but she could even write in Chinese. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any audio recordings of Mrs. Osmond speaking in Chinese. We do, however, have photocopies of some of her writings in Chinese. Would you like to see them? Now, you don't need to be Chinese, nor do you need to know Chinese to know that that is not Chinese. That is chicken scratch. But that's the best they could come up with. William Seymour, founder of the Azusa Street Revival, he was a student of Charles Fox Parham. Parham, however, was a racist, and he would not allow William Seymour to sit in on his classes. He had to sit outside the wall and just listen through an open window. But after that, William Seymour started the Azusa Street Revival, and this is where tongues broke out. Would you like to see them? Now, you don't need to be Chinese, nor do you need to know Chinese to know that that is not Chinese. That is chicken scratch. But that's the best they could come up with. William Seymour, founder of the Azusa Street Revival, he was a student of Charles Fox Parham. Parham, however, was a racist, and he would not allow William Seymour to sit in on his classes. He had to sit outside the wall and just listen through an open window. But after that, William Seymour started the Azusa Street Revival, and this is where tongues broke out. There was bizarre behavior by William Seymour and others, followers of his. They would roll around on the floor, they would get spasms, and they would jerk and shake. Some people would get rigid like just a plank. They claimed trances and visions from God. Charles Parham, interestingly, rejected all this bizarre behavior, not because of any theological conviction, but rather he just could not believe that God would actually work through a black man. So, Parham was a homosexual, child molester, racist, not a good guy. But Seymour was not a saint in his own right, however. He rarely preached, at least as far as teaching the Bible, but rather told stories and claimed trances and visions. Bizarrely, he would walk around in his church with a box, like a wooden crate over his head. And when he put this wooden crate over his head, that's when God began to speak to him. But he was a weird guy in his own right. 26 different denominations today trace their origins back to William Seymour in the Azusa Street Revival. You may have heard of the different waves of the Pentecostal movement. The first wave was the Azusa wave, the Azusa Revival. Another one of God's generals is this guy, John G. Lake. He is one of the most revered forefathers of the charismatic movement. He was a disciple of John Alexander Dowie. He founded the church at Portland, Oregon, and he also had healing rooms. Charismatics make the claim today that he healed over 100,000 people. However, none of these healings were ever documented. These are not real healings. They were psychosomatic healings, like I was talking about yesterday. Mind over body. You can get temporary relief from some physical ailments just through a rush of adrenaline and endorphins, but then the euphoria subsides. His own wife, interestingly, died of a fever 6 months after they arrived in South Africa. So let me get this straight. He healed 100,000 other people, but he couldn't heal his own wife? Watch this clip from Bill Johnson.
Lake stayed in such constant communion with the Lord that it seemed not even a deadly plague could survive when coming into contact with him.
He once took, the fluids from a dead person's body filled with living bacteria, and the doctors, told him he's going to die, by touching this stuff.